Hello, we're here with our New Life series, the educational series with Dr. Michael Laitman. Thank you for joining us. Hello, Rav Laitman. Hello. Hello, Nitza Mazuz. Hello, we're here talking about Israeli society. You're welcome to join us in our discussions. We hope you enjoy them. And we hope you'll be able to take a part of this for your life, for your relationships, in the society that you live in, the society that we all live in, the Israeli society. That's our subject, and we're talking about it today as well. Each time we look at it from a different angle. We're trying to see how here and now we can build a society that we can be happy in, that we'll be happy to raise our kids in, that all of us will wake up in the morning with light in our eyes. Nitza Mezuz, where are we going today? Today we want to start a process that we're calling healing the Israeli society. And we want to start with a subject that is the rift between the secular and the Orthodox in Israel. And let's take it back 100 years, more or less, when it began. The dream of returning to Zion came true. Yes, it came true. Jews started coming here, Orthodox Jews. They came from the old settlements. They came with a desire to really learn and implement their religion here in the Holy Land. And the people that supported them and maintained them were the Jews that remained abroad. And the new settlements started, the Zionism, the new generation also came. They wanted to make a home for themselves here. And they began to build themselves a new image, a younger image, more advanced, robust. They lift their sleeve, roll their sleeves up, they're working, they want to maintain themselves, they don't want to be dependent on anyone else. And through that, they actually disconnected themselves from the roots, from religion, for all kinds of reasons. And we see that from the first point of founding Israel, gradually this rift began between that old settlement and the new settlement, the younger generation, which had a different approach, different ideology. So first of all, from your perspective, how do you see this process of this split that started precisely when we came back to Israel? First of all, we need to understand that the return to Israel happened at the end of Galut. Like we talk about in Purim, it happened at the end of exile. But what happens at the end is what happens. At the end of 2,000 years of exile, that's what happened. After all the results of this long exile, what happened. And there were lots of very, very different phenomena and very extreme things that happened with the Jews. There were reform socialists. There were revolutions in Europe and Russia. They came with all different wisdoms. They wanted to build a new land here, and of course, most of them were secular because the religious thought we were waiting for the Messiah. And here and there, people joined them, but not a lot. Let's say that this land attracted secular Jews. And the religious came afterward because they saw that truly it's a new place for Jews. The problem is that each one wanted to control things as usual. The ego that grew in us at the end of the exile, it's not the end of exile, it's actually the exile is finished on a certain date. It finishes inside us. It's still not over, but we're still in exile. But anyone that came, and there were all kinds of Among the secular, you see the Palmach and the Mapai and all different movements. When I came to Israel, I saw them. I met Mapainikim and liberals and all different types. But there were parties with a vision, which is interesting, and I spoke to many of them. And I saw that they're really dedicated to this ideal, which later, 30 years, 40 years later, it's gone. So we see here in Israel a very big extremeness in opinions. And what's special about it is that each one wants to control the other. Let's say if I go to America, there's all kinds of Jews there, extreme like this to extreme like that, but they can be together. A secular Jew comes to a synagogue. It happens 3 times a year that he comes to a synagogue. No one says to him that he's Jewish. He can go into any place he wants. These days especially, it's okay with everyone. They don't have to divide the government cake or anything. They're not in some kind of competition with one another. You want to be a bit more secular, a bit more religious here, everyone? You've got place for this, place for that. Because you live in a great mass of people that don't belong to this or to that, and there's no place for competition or war. Therefore, it was good. I would feel it in America. I'd feel great with everyone. Some people go into synagogue in the Shabbat. They drive home with a cigarette. Nobody says anything to anyone. That's it. There's places where it's more orthodox or less orthodox, but everyone belongs to the Jewish people. There's no hatred for religion there. I became more religious, and everyone might have their own rabbi, or he can be completely secular, but he still has a rabbi. We have in our region some rabbi that we go to. I know my family in Canada, for example. They're completely secular. In Israel, they hate religious people. They don't understand me at all. But there, they have this Rabbi Zaltzman they go to. They go to his synagogue a few times a year. They invite him to a bar mitzvah here and there. If when my father passed away, they invited him to do the whole process. It's part of life, regular life. Like social, it's a social thing. It's a social service what that rabbi does for the community, and the community is connected to him. They pay him, and they contribute lots of money. They build all kinds of institutions there. Sometimes, especially before a bar mitzvah, they do all kinds of things. There's no rejection. That's very nice to see. And I think it's because, first of all, there's no place to control one another. There's no common area. You can't make anything off me, and I can't make off you. We can only complement one another. And apart from that, we have enemies around us. It's worth it for us to... We're still Jews at the end of the day. Here in Israel, Because we don't have this enemy that's organizing us to be together, we're looking for this enemy in each other. These and those, all kinds of types of variations. The way our ego is warming us up and directing us. Therefore, it's a very big problem. Despite that I was a Zionist, when I came here, I came really out of Zionism, a desire to be here and everything, and to strengthen Israel as much as I could, the nation, the people. I think that, how can I put it? I think we need to take a completely different example from the Israeli society. We need to see Israelis without an external image, secular, religious, what color, anything. But rather, if we place our principle from the days of Abraham, love thy neighbor as thyself, everything else is nothing. That has to be our education. That's it. That's called religion. There's no other religions. Religion is called love, love thy neighbor as thyself. And everything else I wouldn't take into account. And everything else, I don't see any place for them presenting themselves as some special nation in the Knesset and the government, because you think like this and he thinks like that, but rather society has to be attracted only to one principle, and that's it. What you want, whether you want to go with a kippah or wear a hat or any other form, please. No one's going into your business. But because you want to go with this hat, then you have to. It's because you need to get some special relation from the government. That has nothing to do with it. There's no place for that here in our society. And we see that precisely each time we're putting more and more emphasis on the differences between us, not what's connecting us, but what separates us. So everyone jumps up and says, I'm different than others, and this way. And that's why our approach to elections is completely opposite than what it should be. Everyone says, I'm right compared to the others. Instead of saying, doesn't matter who's right or wrong, we have 20 parties. Above this division, we have to be one. And this is the genuine Zionism. Therefore, I don't know how we can realize it with what's happening today. Only through education, only through advertising, and still more and more and more, getting into the nation, penetrating and persuading them and showing them that they will never attain what they want from anyone. Can be secular, religious, doesn't matter what, because until we don't achieve the connection between us, inside the connection that we will achieve, all the other benefits and successes will come, nothing will happen. All our good goals can only be inside this connection. Therefore, I see this as my mission, only to bring about one nation. One nation, and one religion for the whole world, not just Jews, and that is love. The connection, love, complementing each other, and on the way there's compromising and everything. So if we go in that way, that's the internalness of the Torah. That's what Abraham wanted. That's the foundation of the whole Torah, and not all these traditions that each person thinks his tradition is the holiest thing. But only this. This will be accepted by everyone, on all secular and Jews, and above that we will connect. And we're also inviting our neighbors to connect here and everyone. And then it's worth it for us to sit in Zion, and it's worth it for us to be a light unto the nations and show everyone that this is what we're disseminating to the world, and no one knows how to do it. And actually, our Torah speaks of this and not anything else. That's what I would disseminate to the people, to the world. Maybe let's take a look. There were many ideologies and views. There were all kinds of different parts of Judaism. There was Echad Ha'am who said it was completely secular. He said we just take the values from the religion. He said that in the 21st century it would really be in his spirit. And there were streams next to him, like Martin Buber, that said it's impossible. We have to have the spirit element here. And if we don't have the spiritual element, if a person doesn't feel that he's connected to the Jewish root, his Jewish root, or even if he's part of something much greater, part of some much greater system, then very quickly he'll feel that he's like a tree, that its roots have been cut off, and he won't be able to continue developing. Look, I think that they're not that far from each other. Even though they appear to be far from each other, they all came out of one root. Also Martin Buber and Echad Ha'am and Charnichovsky and Ben Gurion and everyone, they all had the foundations. They all learned Torah. They all knew what the commandments were, mitzvot, in a national way. They got it in their childhood, and that's what came out. We need to understand that a Jewish person has to know these things. Whether he carries it out or not, it's his free choice. His education has to be teaching him all these things. Not making him a religious person, but teach him his roots and traditions, and along with that, teach him all kinds of other things. What is love thy neighbor as thyself, which is the most internal foundation of the Torah, and how to be an educated person, all kinds of other sciences, natural sciences, social sciences. He has to get it as a complete thing to be intelligent. Something that includes everything. And what he goes toward after, that's up to him. We can leave it up to randomness. There's people that from day one, they're more inclined to be religious and they're born into religious families, and the opposite. We need to, I would only be worried about be concerned about one education, to produce people that understand the entire culture of Israel in all directions, its whole spectrum. And apart from that, give a person a normal, good education of the entire world, so that he'll have this internal richness, wide, and from which direction he'll choose from there, that's his business. That's his business. I wouldn't enforce anything on him. We truly have to weigh all these things from scratch. And this is the approach, I think, that we need to have. How to approach it? I think we don't need to pay attention to seculars with their approach to life. We see what's happening. And not to the religious. We see what's happening there with their approach to life. They're both in a cul-de-sac of their own. We need to go in the middle line, as I have said, and only to promote this new approach. It's not new, it's the oldest possible approach, but in Israel, this new education, the love of Israel, love thy neighbor as thyself, to be a light unto the nations, which is our mission, which is our destiny, and that's why we are here in Israel. We are here only for that. And there's a lot of material around this, and we need to develop it more and more and promote it to everyone. And you're right that it has to be in a manner that nobody can associate our approach to any direction. It's something that's completely different than everything else. Only an approach of love. If we look to build a new person, the new Israeli. Previously, you were talking about the society. Now let's look at this new Israeli that is not religious, he's not secular, and everyone can be under that umbrella. If we cancel everything else apart from that principle, then everyone can come under. I don't care who I'm with. If we, above all the crimes, we love to cover it, then we can be with all our crimes, everyone as they are. If I don't pay attention to how other people are different than me because we're in a family, so what's the problem? Just the opposite. Let everyone develop however he wants to, but we have the common thing that we're together, that we don't hate each other, that we love each other, that we're concerned about connection, do everything out of the concern for connection. I don't think about myself, but I think about everyone, etc. So it's precisely this extremeness and this variety can give us richness, abundance, and a breakthrough in culture, or approach to life, everything. Some people are sitting from morning to night learning Talmud, and then you see how much they succeed in all kinds of other places because they didn't learn so much. You see, they're precisely in software, in the settlements, they're great. They're better than the rest of the world. All kinds of things. Those people are learning their education over there in music, literature. I would build a new umbrella of love, and I would only speak of this and educate human beings to measure and see and associate everything to that measurement of pure love. You're talking about that, you're attracted to that, toward that you see yourself, against that background you're talking, that you're after pure love, if you're canceling all the differences, if everything you say and do, you're turning toward more, you're adding to the connection, and if not, then we don't hear from you. Then you're not part of us. In this manner, if we would behave in society, this is what we would teach kids. All the media and everything, if everything was geared toward that, we would build a new person that is truly called Jewish, because he's drawn to unity, and that's why we're called Jews. You explained before that we learn the whole tradition, but we don't know why. What is special about the Jews? They only need to believe that if we will be one nation, if we will be as one body, then we will succeed in everything, not in controlling someone, not in the power force, but in our approach to show everyone how much this principle is special and eternal and supreme. Then, alongside that, we can release such great forces inside us. And this is how we neutralize all the evil forces in the world. And in that, we begin to connect between us in a single connection in the inner network. Everyone starts being rich from being integrated in the opinions of others. If I feel someone, what's in me and what's in him begins to be common. I begin to feel what's in him, and he begins to feel what's in me. And then each of us are integrated in everyone, and everyone becomes very varied with all kinds of different perspectives that thousands of people have, and it's all inside him. And from that, he becomes a very strong vessel, absorption, feels, discovers nature, the world. Despite that, he didn't receive any education. I would say he didn't even get any learning, but only from being connected to others. He gets it from the inner connection between us all. Therefore, I would first of all put an emphasis on education. I call it the integral education. Maybe we need maybe we should call it social education or education of connecting. I don't know. I don't know what to call it. But still, I want to be precise in our question, because I think it's something that lots of people are walking around with this emptiness. What to believe. Yes, that's it, what to believe. I believe that we are connected together, that if we're connected together, we'll have a special power, we'll rise above our nature, above ourselves. We will truly begin, like I begin to connect with others, I begin to feel to distances inside. If I'm connected to people all over the world, I begin through them to see the source. It's not seeing with my eyes. With our eyes, we don't see a lot. Sometimes we see and don't see, but rather everything depends on my vessel, how much inside I'm directed toward this approach. Therefore, if we connect with one another in our desire to be connected, we begin to understand and feel everything that those people feel that I'm connected with. I begin to suddenly to be spread out apparently on the whole world, and there's no limit to this feeling. I become this image of one person, one global person, because I relate to everyone in a good way, and I want to influence everyone in a good way, and I want everyone to receive what they want. And in that, there's an expanding of the mind, of the emotions, psychologically, that in that we rise above all the borders, limitations of our bodies. A person comes out, who breaks through his body to the outer space. There is so much opportunity there for emotion, understanding, feeling. We go on trips We don't know what to do with ourselves. We have thousands of TV channels. These are all small things. Here, in this manner, we suddenly begin to receive such inspiration that we can't even fill it with that technical stuff. The technological things are ending. If I start to connect in an internal manner with people, then it's not the connection through the cable lines and everything, modems that we have now. Therefore, we don't understand what we're acquiring here, what abilities. Apart from that, I begin to feel the inner power of nature. I come out of myself. I begin connecting with everyone. I begin to not be limited in myself. And then when I come out of myself, above myself, toward others, I begin to feel some external space outside of me, and a feeling that opens in me in such a way that there is no time, no limit, no movement, no distance, but rather I am in some space that is not physical, not three-dimensional. We're starting to feel this connection between people. But what do I want to say? That everything that we're attempting to build, all the means we have for filling ourselves with these little pleasures, are bringing us to some or keeping us busy with all kinds of hobbies and trips. It's all very little artificial things that we have to carry our body somewhere to be excited about something. That in order to get pleasure from something, I have to bring my body to a picnic so it'll eat a piece of meat. I have to bring my body to a theater so it'll see some dance. I have to drag my body somewhere. So like a camera, it will take pictures of these things for me. And after this body, I'm standing and enjoying myself. Because my emotional sensories are behind my body. Ears, eyes, etc. Taste, smell. And here I don't need that. Here I take myself out of the body, just the opposite, and begin to get pleasure from abstract things. That's the next stage of our evolvement. There's no question that we're going along with nature. And that we're advancing in accordance with the crisis and all these urges that we see today. Here it is, for sure we are healing all our diseases of human society. One of the articles that I read and that really awakened me was a very nice article that wrote that one of the greatest education people from the Zionist movement wrote, Ariel Ben-Gurion, rest in peace. He wrote, he educated according to the Zionist education at the time, and throughout his life he understood that there was a failure because he also analyzed it very nicely, explained that at the beginning what happened was the younger generation that came here, even though on the one hand they disconnected from their roots, on the other hand, they had a very clear goal. Their goal was to build. Therefore, because they had such a clear goal, they united around this goal, and also they still lived in there. They had a recollection of Judaism. They remembered it. And today we're the third generation. And on the one hand, this goal of building the country is no longer here. There's nothing in the environment to unite us. And on the other hand, we completely disconnected from the root and from this recollection that we have. And so we're really hanging. There's nothing to grasp. Yes, we're between the sky and the earth. There's no need. What do we need to build? All kinds of walls, barriers? Of course, we don't need it anymore. And we built a lot, but without inner content. Because he's an education person, and you're also dealing with education, it would be interesting to see how through this perspective of what happened and then this generation that we're in now in the Israeli society, truly, what kind of education do we need to have in Israeli society today? You spoke of it before, but it looks like something that needs to really be built. I see education, first and foremost, the general approach to education has to be integral, meaning that anyone who studies has to learn from the connection with others and not do anything except together. How can we be together? Are you listening to the teacher? No, you're not hearing the teacher. You hear the teacher through the group, through the friends. Everyone sits together. The teacher's talking, everyone, after each piece, after each section, everyone talks about it, asks, explain to one another. They chew on these things together. He gives like a portion on the general plate, and everyone eats together, but he gives it to everyone. And he also asks everyone, and when he asks everyone, we demand the participation of everyone together. And in this manner, a person, it's not that he learns better. We've known this for a long time, but rather a person begins to receive not from his teacher, but from this general vessel, from this group, from the connection between lots of opinions and perceptions. He begins to already, from the teacher, it goes through the group, and he begins to be integrated with everyone. Even though he learns history or geography, it doesn't matter what. And also when he's talking, when his teacher asks, he operates himself with the others to get a reply out of everyone. He's always building an integral vessel, and it's never an individual, egoistic vessel tool. That's the general approach. And through this approach, we learn everything. And being together, connecting, it's as if we're not learning, but rather it's constant. We're always explaining it a little bit as new rules of our general behavior, and then we implement it a little bit more, so it'll be integrated in a person in a natural way. It's not some professional that I learn an hour a day, and the rest of the time I learn other things. But all our subjects are rather, I learn them in all the games and behaviors and discussions. It's all through this common vessel, this common tool, even to the extent that a person who grows inside, he begins to create this vessel. It's being built in a manner that he cannot see the world in a personal, individual way. Everything comes through the group, through the society. He's already built like that. He can't deal otherwise. He begins to expand his absorption inside. He begins to have lots of opinions inside. He's a person that is prepared to understand others. It's very simple for him, easy for him to feel everyone. That's especially important in education, and the learning that they receive is through this approach. And when they receive learning through this approach, he suddenly begins to also see the world. When we learn about Columbus, when we learn about math or physics, he begins to see all these things also through the common vessel. Meaning the approach, the entire approach to the world, to reality, is completely different. Math I also learn in a different manner. I learn it through connecting with others. Meaning I don't look at the numbers, I don't look at the physics or geography from my personal approach. I look how these things operate inside the connection, because my vessel is always multifaceted, sensory. And so it turns out that all the subjects are different subjects. They're completely different. We still don't understand how much I even listen to music in a different manner. I read every text in a different manner, because at the end of the day, my understanding, my feeling is multifaceted. Therefore, the main thing is this new approach that precisely in that we need to practice a lot. And this is all the years that the kids are before school, let's say up to the age of 4 or 5. We need to work with them on this all the time. From the earliest age, of course, in a simple manner, nice approach, but it has to go in an instinctive manner. His habits become his second nature. He understands that without this, he's not capable. It's like two kids that grow up together and sleep together in one bed and eat together and everything's together. That's how it should be with him. But it's not in his bodily habits, it's his perception, his approach to life. And I hope that we'll succeed at some point in educating our kids like this, and then they won't need to go through the path that we went through, but rather they'll feel the next stage, the next world, the upper world. I'd like to ask, the word that keeps being repeated in your descriptions is multifacetedness. You're talking about the boy or the child being a rich person, a person that can understand lots of variations, can feel lots of variations. You talked about this is enriching our ability to absorb. Yes, and I want to go back to this ability to become rich from others, from the place that we started this discussion. We're talking about the historical perspective where our people has been split into two main streams, where each one goes back to many other movements. The split is to secular and religious. And Nietzsche can represent the secular people, and I can represent the religious people. For this purpose, I want to understand, what is this upper thing, this uniting thing that's like a crown above all this multifacetedness and above all these streams, where you're saying we need to grab it as the foundation of the new society, the new Israeli, the foundation of the new life, within which, if I manage to understand all these explanations, where man and society become so sensitive, become so multifaceted that they can integrate multiples, they can bring about multiples from a frequency of mono, with each person in their own traditions and opinions and everything his. Suddenly, technology is upgraded, and suddenly you can absorb a lot at once. You can integrate a lot at once. To conclude, the question is, what is the supreme thing that you're suggesting as the foundation of the new Israeli approach that can integrate this multifacetedness? That there's a place in our mind and our feelings that connects everything, that hugs everything. What is that one thing that is the key to connecting everything? That all the kids in one family. What's the key to transforming myself to that kind of person, and the Israeli society transforms itself to that kind of society? We must rise above our nature, which is a desire to enjoy. I, for myself, on others' account, against everyone, usually precisely on the account of others is better. It gives me additional pleasure, allows me to enjoy from others and on the account of others. Our ego works in such a manner that I like suppressing others, or at least being above them, and this gives me pleasure. This is the social ego. What's less than that is not called ego. It's called our basic nature, like a creature. If I lived in the forest, I would need to put on something to wear because I don't have, fur. So I need some fake fur. I need food like animals in the forest eat. I would also live and eat like them. There's no problem. But anything beyond that, it all belongs to human pleasures that I receive them by being in society. Society does not mean family. Family is like me. If we're talking about family, not the modern families, it's called like me. It's bad for them, it's bad for me. It's good for them, it's good for me. It's like one body. Wife is like part of a man's body. But everything else, apart from the body and what it needs as a creature, everything else has to do with relations between people. And all these relations are also built on receiving pleasures. Receiving pleasures is built on, I want to get pleasure from all humans, and the more as possible, and be above them. That's the special pleasure. Not just saying, you, give me what you have. No, but rather to be above them in control, in opinion, wisdom, success, all different kinds of success. And the main thing is to attract from them toward me respect, jealousy. And that gives me joy. My ego, it's a spiritual force. It enjoys it to the extent that I feel myself higher than others. This nature is called the evil inclination, and it's ruining all of human society for us. Therefore, we're reaching such a great crisis today, and in all our dealings, human beings, because anything that we want to build in our lives around the world, that the world has become very small and connected, we started to feel that we just want to eat each other up. Now, in that we are explaining this approach, say this new approach, even though there's nothing really new about it, it's been known for a long time, we're explaining in that we're giving humanity the ability to understand that here we have the special technology for building a healthy environment, that it can come out of the crisis, it can rise above the nature that's killing us and bringing us to disaster, the brink of disaster, that's destroying everything that we're doing in the world. And a tiny bit, if we just change ourselves a tiny bit, you don't need to change anything, not at home, not at work, nothing. Just slightly the media. You slightly need to educate people to give him new values. And with those today, no one will disregard it because everyone's suffering from what's happening. So even though I don't really believe it, but let's pretend. Do we have a choice? If we don't do it, let's pretend. If we pretend, gradually this habit will become second nature. Suddenly I'll begin to appreciate mutual giving, good relations between people. Here we have to develop an approach that's pleasant and simple and good for a person to explain to him that there's no choice. That's it. Now with kids it's even easier because we control them, actually. So the younger generation is just going into it in schools. They're going into this new treatment. We don't have any problem. I wanted to ask more about the adults. I still don't understand. I'm not able to grasp the thing that is not religious and not secular, but is inside it. There's a place for multifacetedness that can integrate this and that, and integrate everything as one. What is that thing? Secularism and also religiousness, even though they grew from this mutual hatred and the ego, but they have no connection to mutual hatred or mutual love. Each one wants to be in their own thing and control the other. We have one pie for the country. The religious want the whole pie and the secular want the whole pie. And they're arguing how many statistics to give to each part. If they would divide it by head, there would be no problem. But there's all kinds of politics that everyone wants to take more than he deserves. If, say, we have 100 representatives, we have 120, but it doesn't matter. Let's say we have 100 representatives in the Knesset, 40 secular and 60 religious, and according to that we divide. Would anyone say anything? No, because that's the number of representatives, and they're explaining what each part of the population deserve. Secular get this much, religious get this much. Yes or no? But rather, there's inequality. Everyone wants to get more out of the other. The ego is working. Everyone's working their ego, and everyone wants to control the other. Just like a person wants everyone to serve him, everyone to work for him, that he wants to be proud, he wants to control others, he wants to get respect, he wants people to be jealous. Between these two bodies, we have these relations. They don't want to be equal. They each want more. That's the main problem. Therefore, each one brings all kinds of excuses. These are working, these aren't working, these are in the army, these aren't in the army, which is really marginal stuff, just to get more power for themselves, to profit more, as if I care what's really happening with the others. No, it's all our ego. If we don't rise above our ego and say that only the connection between us, above all the differences, we're not thinking about anything else except connection. This is the only thing between us. We're talking only about this, not hatred, not lack of consideration. That's downward. There's no such thing. We have to rise above it. We have to. If we don't, we'll continue living in this increasing ego, and with no end, until the crisis will simply bury us. I think that when you look at a certain process, a lot of times a person asks himself, did it have to happen in reality like this rift? Of course, because a movement has to come up, rise up, that will talk about the values that I'm talking about and must prepare itself to present itself to the general public, that precisely in its approach, there is a way, a correct manner to be saved from this entire conflict, because if not, we're advancing toward a bad end. You're saying this rift, this split, if we look at the benefits, you're saying there was advantages to it. Of course, above it, we need to build, like you explained, this umbrella, this bridge, but it still had an advantage. We're recognizing the evil in us through this split. But what do we do onward? Do we continue celebrating? That's the question. So I don't have a question. I have no question about it. You mentioned before, I left it for the end, you mentioned we're in Israel, but we're still in exile. Can you explain in a simple manner what you mean? What does that mean, we're still in exile? Exile means that we're outside of loving others, like in the days of the temple, Rabbi Akiva, that he screamed, love thy neighbor as thyself, is a great law in the Torah. We need to hold on to it, otherwise we're lost. And truly, that is what happened. So we need to understand that the entire Torah is only to carry out this law, love thy neighbor as thyself. This is the whole foundation that everything is built on. This is actually the principle that Abraham was teaching the people in Babylon in those days that were in Canaan. And we were more or less, we existed around this principle of from the moment we left Babylon until the destruction of the Second Temple, like about 1,500 years. And that's it. Exile of 2,000 years is called exile because in it we don't implement this principle, even slightly, love thy neighbor as thyself. But the ego and the unfounded hatred is breaking out more and more. So today, if we want to come back from exile and truly come back from exile, then we don't need anything except this mitzvah, this commandment. This is the great law of the Torah that holds everything and all the other corrections inside it, that a person corrects to the public, to himself, to the world. That is actually the foundation, the capsule of all the mitzvot, the commandments that we have to carry out on ourselves. And that's why I created a bad inclination, and so even with agreement or not with agreement, the secular, the religious, and that we are going back to loving others, we are attracting toward us and carrying out in us the entire Torah. The entire Torah. What did Hillel say? Don't do unto others as you wouldn't do unto yourselves. Even in that, not love, but don't do. Don't hate your friend with your heart. That's it. So what else is there to do? I think that in that, if we bring to public opinion that it's everything we are and everything we have, then they won't feel rejection from this. Just the opposite. They have something to be proud of. And I hope that we'll succeed in conveying this to the people, to the younger generation at least, that are looking for justice here. They're looking for richness here. You're looking for connection here. You have everything. Just pay attention. Who's saying these things? So that they won't reach a person that wants to attract you to more artificial, more fraud. I think that we're now in a state where verifying the last verification. We're going into the government, Knesset. There's new forces that want to represent Arvut, connection, equality, closing the gaps. We'll give them a place to work. Of course, they'll fail because they don't have the right foundation. And possibly afterward, the new movement that truly grasps this has to come out and present itself as holding the correct principle and being capable of treating the nation and treating them only from this perspective of education. And I hope we succeed. Our time is up. Thank you very much, Rav Laitman. Thank you, Nitza Mazuz. Thank you for being with us. Until next time, new life together. All the best.